Hi guys, Mark Dawes NFPS here once more, and in this short video I want to talk to you about an old friend of ours called the basket hold, or as some agencies refer to it as the wrap, or the small child hold, or the tantrum hold. And as many of you will know, the basket hold is where someone restraining a vulnerable child predominantly stands behind them with the child's arms held in a cross across the front of their chest, and their hands are held and their movement is restricted by pulling against their arms across the front of their chest. Now, we don't use this technique. I must state that straight off. We don't use this technique because you can go back as far as 16 years ago where there's guidance out there that says that any technique that interferes with diaphragmatic and movement of lung function or restricts breathing should not be used. And there is every foreseeable possibility with this technique that it can restrict someone's breathing if it's used on them. Now, I know some agencies out there teach to say, oh no, that won't happen, because if you do it properly and you put the child's hands, for example, on their waist and not across their abdomen, then it won't restrict their breathing. Okay, let's just deal with that stupidity straight away. You would not be holding a child or a vulnerable adult in that position unless they were struggling, unless there was a risk of them doing something, because you cannot use force on a person without legal justification, so you must be trying to stop their movement. And let's look at it from a risk perspective, a risk assessment perspective. If that child is struggling, and for those of you that work with children, you'll know this, the child will thrust back and forwards, they'll move up and down, they'll drop their weight. So there's every foreseeable opportunity that the arms that are across the front of the child could rise up and come across their abdomen and restrict their breathing. And in fact, when we've demonstrated this on people and we've used this in live testing, that's exactly what happens. So the cop-out of holding their arms tight on their waist to not interfere with their breathing is a cop-out. It's a crock, basically, so don't believe that crap. But here's the thing. I've spoken about this before because I'm quite passionate about not teaching stuff that shouldn't be taught, and we've come at it from a lone working perspective. We've looked at the guidance and the regulations out there, and all of this says you shouldn't do this stuff. But let's come at it from a different perspective, because last week when I was teaching a course, there was a really knowledgeable guy on this course, and he came at it from a different perspective, and we were talking about the Heimlich Maneuver. So let me show you what he sent me by email to clarify the conversation we had. He said, the NHS have some pretty clear advice. Abdominal thrusts can cause serious injuries. Where this potentially life-saving treatment has been necessary, a health professional such as your GP or a doctor in A&E should always examine the person afterwards. The risk is caused by repeated subdiaphragmatic pressure, which has the potential to damage internal organs. If somebody were struggling in a basket hold and it ended up simulating the Heimlich Maneuver, jumping up and down to escape the hold, for example, the same risks would be present. It is important to make the seemingly obvious point that having to perform the Heimlich Maneuver itself would not constitute a safeguarding issue. However, repeated use of a restraint technique which has the potential for internal injury when safer methods are known and could be employed may be considered abuse of a vulnerable child or adult at risk. Now, most of you, or many of you, will know what the Heimlich Maneuver is, but for those of you that don't, let me just clarify it. It's where someone is choking and you put your hands into their abdomen and you thrust in and upwards to try to dislodge the offending object from their windpipe. So what this guy is saying, and this is a seriously intelligent guy with a lot of experience and competence in this field, who does a lot of safeguarding stuff as well as restraint training, he is saying that with the basket hold, there is every potential, if a child, a vulnerable child, as we're talking about in this case, who is struggling, to simulate the same sort of movement that could be caused by the Heimlich Maneuver. That means bringing the hands, or the hands coming up under the ribs and hitting on the diaphragm. If that's the case, it should absolutely not be used. And there is a big argument going on at the moment about the Heimlich Maneuver not being used because there's no evidence, allegedly, to prove that it actually works, and there are safer methods to do it. So here's my bit for you. If you are a commissioning agency, so you're a care home or a hospital or a school, and you're employing a training provider to teach your staff how to control children, if they are teaching this technique, you could be sanctioning a technique that could actually cite one of your employees for abuse if it injures or damages a child. You, as the commissioning agency, will be vicariously liable for that. I mean, if you don't believe me, look at the website, look at the Morrison's case. There's loads of evidence of vicarious liability out there. The training provider who's teaching it is an idiot, basically, because they should not be teaching this stuff. But they're not going to pick up the can. You're going to pick up the can for not doing your due diligence. So it's really important that you understand this. Now, there are safer methods of restraint out there. I've ranted on about the basket hold before, but I wanted to come at it from a different angle. But let's just summarise. A, it's a single person restraint. A single person restraint should not be used. Sir Herbert Lame, or Lord Laming, as he is now, who was once Sir Herbert Laming, who was a Chief Inspector of Social Services Inspectorate, actually said you should not restrain on your own. And if you are restraining on your own, it's a lone working activity, so there's health and safety regulations and guidance that you need to comply with. You should not be putting staff in that position. There's potential for the member of staff to be hurt, because in that position, a child could headbutt. They could stamp on your feet, they could do all sorts, because it's a single person restraint. In a single person restraint, you're exposing the member of staff to allegations, because there's no one else there to witness what is going on. The child could be injured for all the reasons we just discussed right now. If you're holding a child in that position, they can wriggle, they can jump, they can move, they can thrust, arms will rise up, and you're going to put pressure on the lungs, the respiratory system, the diaphragmatic diaphragm, which is going to restrict breathing, which you should not be doing, because there is a whole raft of guidance out there that says don't do this stuff. So why is it still being used? I've got no freaking idea. We don't teach it, we wouldn't sanction it. Of course, it's not illegal. There's no law that says it can't be used, so people are just teaching this crap. My advice for you, don't use it. There's safer methods of restraint. Now, if you're interested to know more about this stuff, we've got a child safeguarding trainer course on in February. There's probably a link below this video somewhere, or it's on our website. Or if you want to become a competent trainer, look at our March Restraint Instructors course, because we'll teach you techniques that should be used, and we'll teach you techniques that shouldn't be used. And all of our techniques have gone through a medical review by Dr. Tony Bleetman. We do this every couple of years, so the medical review is up to speed, and the new Guides to Children's Homes regulation says that any techniques being used with children should be medically reviewed for fit for purpose. I've just given you a damn good reason why that one should not be used. I'll be interested in your comments, guys. Leave some comments below. I really would like this to have some legs, so please share this about, because it's really important, and I'm really serious. Share this video about, it's really important, because there is some innocent commissioning agency out there who's taking a lead from a training provider that doesn't know his arse from his elbow and doesn't know what they're talking about, but that poor commissioning agency is going to end up with a problem, not necessarily the training provider. Speak to you soon, guys. Thanks very much. Leave a comment and share. Cheers, guys.